For 2,000 years, they've only told us half the story. There's a secret, buried deep within the most ancient texts, a secret that will forever change everything you believe about the resurrection. In the next 50 minutes, you'll uncover evidence that has been deliberately hidden for centuries, and when you're done watching, your faith will never be the same. But I warn you, once you know the truth, there's no going back. Jerusalem, Sunday morning. Year 30 AD. 3 women walked toward a tomb. They expected to find a body, but they found something that defies logic, science, and reality itself. What really happened that Sunday? Why do the accounts differ? And most importantly, what did the ancient scribes deliberately omit? My name is Marcus Aurelius, and for the past 15 years, I've delved into the Vatican's most secret archives, the lost Dead Sea Scrolls, and the texts the early church chose to hide. I've spent entire nights translating Aramaic in underground libraries, deciphered codes on scrolls that hadn't seen the light of day for 1,000 years, and uncovered truths that would shake the pillars of Christianity. What you're about to discover isn't based on conspiracy theories or internet speculation. It comes directly from the oldest historical documents in existence, documents that cost fortunes to obtain, documents men died trying to protect. But before I continue, I need to warn you of something very important. This video is being censored by social media algorithms. Channels that reveal this kind of information are constantly restricted and shadow banned. YouTube has already removed 3 of my previous videos without explanation. Facebook blocked my account for 2 weeks when I posted just a fragment of these discoveries. So, if you want to ensure you continue to have access to these exclusive revelations that can transform your spiritual life, you need to become part of our inner circle of truth seekers. Click the subscribe button now and activate the bell, because without it, you may never see our next explosive videos. And that like? It's your way of saying, I want the whole truth, no matter how shocking. It's your way of saying, I'm not afraid of the truth. It's your signature on the manifesto of those who seek the reality behind the curtains of official history. Each subscriber not only guarantees exclusive access to our most in-depth investigations, but also receives a special notification whenever we uncover a new lost manuscript, a new archaeological secret, or a new revelation that could change your life forever. Last week, I gained access to documents the Vatican pays millions to keep secret, documents that reveal not only what happened in the tomb, but what is still happening today. You don't want to miss this, believe me. Today, for the first time in modern history, you will have access to evidence known only to a very select circle of theologians and archaeologists, evidence that took decades to gather, evidence that some would say should never see the light of day. Prepare yourself for a journey that goes far beyond faith, a journey into history itself. A journey that begins with an empty tomb, but ends with revelations that will shake the very foundations of what you thought you knew about life, death, and eternity. You are about to discover why the early Christians were persecuted not only for their beliefs, but for what they actually knew. Why Roman emperors burned entire libraries, why ecclesiastical councils destroyed sacred texts, and why, even today, 2,000 years later, there are forces that would do anything to keep these secrets buried. The truth you are about to discover will not only change your faith, it will change your understanding of reality itself, of what is possible, of what really happens when we die, and of powers that exist within each of us. Powers that the empty tomb revealed for the first time in human history. So tell me, are you ready to know the truth? The whole truth? Even if it destroys everything you thought you knew? Because once you cross that line, once you see what I'm about to show you, there's no going back to comfortable ignorance. The journey into the greatest mystery in human history begins now. Did you know that there are at least 3 different versions of the discovery of the empty tomb, and that 2 of them were purposefully removed from the Bible? For 1,500 years, the Catholic Church kept hidden entire Gospels that tell a completely different story about that Resurrection Sunday. I'm not talking about modern texts or contemporary interpretations. I'm talking about documents written by the disciples themselves in the same years the canonical Gospels were written. The first of these texts is the Gospel of Peter, discovered in an Egyptian tomb in 1886. When archaeologists opened that sarcophagus, they found not only mummies, but scrolls that would tell a version of the resurrection that would make the Catholic Church tremble. In this Gospel, Peter describes in detail not only what he found in the tomb, but what he saw emerging from it. He speaks of two beings of light emerging from the tomb, carrying a third figure. But here's the shock. This third figure wasn't human. It was something Peter describes as transcending the limits of physical form. The second text is even more disturbing. It is the secret Gospel of Mark, mentioned by Clement of Alexandria himself in the 2nd century. In this document, Mark reveals that Jesus appeared to the women at the tomb not as the man they knew, but as an entity of pure energy. Mary Magdalene, according to this text, initially didn't recognize Jesus because he had transformed into something completely different from what he had been before the crucifixion. But why were these texts banned? Why did the early church choose to hide them? The answer is simple and terrifying. Because they revealed that the resurrection was not just a miracle, it was a transformation that transcended everything humanity knew about life and death. They revealed that Jesus had discovered a cosmic secret, a protocol of transcendence that could be replicated by any human being who knew how to activate it. In the 4th century, when Emperor Constantine convened the Council of Nicaea, it wasn't just to establish Christian doctrine. It was to systematically censor and destroy any text that revealed the true nature of the resurrection. 400 bishops gathered not to preserve the Word of God, but to control which version of that Word the people would have access to. They knew that if humanity discovered the true power behind the empty tomb, there would be no more need for religious intermediaries. But this is only the beginning. What you're about to discover about what was truly inside the tomb will shake your deepest convictions. Because the truth is, the tomb wasn't simply empty. It contained something that forever changed the laws of physics and reality. In 1947, a Bedouin shepherd made a discovery that the Vatican tried to buy for $10 million. They failed, and what he found completely rewrites the story of the resurrection. In the Qumran caves near the Dead Sea, this shepherd not only found the famous Dead Sea Scrolls we know, he found something far more disturbing, a specific document that archaeologists have discreetly called the Tomb Document. This scroll, dated between the years 25 and 30 AD, contains the direct testimony of Joseph of Arimathea about what he actually saw when he prepared Jesus' body for burial. And what he describes is no ordinary human body. Joseph speaks of marks on Jesus' skin that resembled circuits of light. He describes how the body radiated an energy that caused metal instruments to vibrate. Even more shocking, he claims that during the preparation of the body, Jesus opened his eyes for a few seconds, but his eyes were no longer human. They were like windows to the cosmos. When the Vatican learned of the discovery of this document, it immediately sent a secret delegation to negotiate its purchase. They offered first $1 million, then $5 million, finally $10 million for a piece of parchment that would fit in your hand. Why so much interest? Why so much money for an ancient text? Because they knew exactly what this document revealed, that Jesus' death on the cross activated a process of transformation that transcended all known laws of biology and physics. But the Bedouin family refused to sell. And this document ended up in the hands of independent scientists who did something the church would never allow. They subjected the parchment to advanced scientific analysis. What they discovered using carbon-14th technology was impossible, something that science cannot explain to this day. Carbon dating revealed that some fibers in the parchment were indeed from the 1st century, but other fibers, intertwined with the ancient ones, showed dates ranging from the year 0 to the future. That's right. Carbon-14th detected elements in the parchment that, according to the laws of physics, could only exist in epochs that had not yet occurred, as if the document existed simultaneously in multiple time dimensions. The scientists were so disturbed by this discovery that 2 of them abandoned their academic careers and refused to publicly discuss the results. But there was more. Spectroscopic analysis revealed that the parchment contained traces of a substance unknown to modern science, a substance that emitted radiation at frequencies that should not naturally occur on Earth. When exposed to this radiation in a laboratory, ordinary human cells began to behave in an impossible way. They stopped aging. More than that, they began regenerating at an accelerated rate, as if they had discovered the genetic code for immortality. The U.S. government immediately classified these discoveries as classified material. All scientists involved were forced to sign confidentiality agreements. The original document was confiscated and taken to an underground facility in Colorado, where it remains to this day under the custody of agencies that officially do not exist. But before it was confiscated, researchers managed to photograph and fully translate the text. And what they discovered goes far beyond anything you could imagine about the resurrection. Joseph of Arimathea not only described the transformation of Jesus' body, he revealed that Jesus had left specific instructions on how this process could be replicated, instructions that were deliberately omitted from all the canonical Gospels. But wait, because what I'm about to show you now will connect dots no one has connected before. There is a prophecy, predating Christ, that describes exactly what happened in the tomb, but with one detail that changes everything. In the oldest archives of the Library of Alexandria, before it was burned, there were texts that spoke of a chosen one who would come to activate a cosmic protocol of transcendence. These texts were not Christian, Jewish, or of any known religion. They were much older. Archaeologists have discovered cuneiform tablets in Mesopotamia dating back to 3,000 years BC that described a transformation ritual that would allow a human being to transcend the limitations of physical death. These tablets spoke of a specific moment in history when the portal would open, and an individual would cross the barrier between life and death, returning transformed into something greater than the ordinary human condition. Even more disturbing, Egyptian hieroglyphics found in the Great Pyramid contained mathematical formulas that calculated exactly when and where this transcendent event would occur. The geographic coordinates pointed to Jerusalem, the calculated date, exactly the period in which Jesus lived. How could civilizations separated by thousands of years and thousands of miles have such specific knowledge about an event that had not yet occurred? The answer lies in the prophecies of Ezekiel and Daniel, but not in the form you know them. There is an older version of these prophetic texts, discovered in caves in Ethiopia, which contains entire passages omitted from the modern Bible. In these passages, Ezekiel describes visions of beings traveling between dimensions, carrying knowledge of transcendent technologies. He speaks of a ship of light that showed him the future of humanity, including the exact moment when the code of immortality would be activated by a man born in Bethlehem. Daniel, in turn, received precise mathematical information about cosmic cycles that would determine when the barrier between the physical and spiritual worlds would become permeable. His calculations, when decoded using modern computers, pinpoint the exact year of Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection. But here's the shock. The same calculations indicate that this process was not a one-time event. According to the original prophecies, Jesus' activation created a cosmic window that would remain open, allowing other human beings to access the same transcendent protocol. Documents found among the Essenes of Qumran reveal that they not only knew Jesus personally, but knew exactly what his cosmic mission was. They called him the opener of the portals, and had prepared for decades to support his transformation. John the Baptist wasn't just a preacher. He was an initiate of the Essene mysteries, responsible for preparing Jesus for a process that completely transcended common religious understanding. The Essenes possessed texts that described in detail the stages of the transformation Jesus would undergo. They knew about the crucifixion, the death, the 3 days in the tomb, and the resurrection. But most importantly, they knew that the resurrection would be only the first phase of a process that would continue for 40 days, during which Jesus would remain on earth not as a resurrected human being, but as something completely new. A new life form that would serve as a bridge between humanity and higher dimensions of existence. And here's the part that will shock you. Jesus knew exactly what was going to happen, but not for the reason you might think. He didn't know because he was God incarnate. He knew because he had studied the same ancient texts, decoded the same cosmic protocols, and prepared for years to become the first human being to consciously activate the genetic code of immortality that lies latent within each of us. Between the resurrection and the ascension, Jesus remained on earth for 40 days. But what did he do during this time? Where did he go? And why did his disciples keep this a complete secret for decades? The canonical Gospels briefly mention some appearances of Jesus during these 40 days, but completely omit what he actually did for most of that time. The truth was deliberately hidden because it would reveal that Jesus did not spend these days merely appearing to his disciples. He spent them teaching them how to replicate his own transformation. Documents discovered in Tibetan monasteries speak of a master of light who arrived in Tibet a few days after the resurrection, bringing teachings on transcending physical death. These documents describe in detail techniques of meditation and consciousness transformation that would allow any practitioner to access higher states of existence. Most strikingly, these Tibetan texts perfectly describe Jesus' post-resurrection appearance, including details that would only appear in the Christian Gospels centuries later. In India, Sanskrit inscriptions dating back to the 1st century speak of a crystal avatar who taught methods of physical immortality to the sages of Rishikesh. These inscriptions describe specific rituals that would activate what they called the diamond body, a state of existence in which human consciousness would free itself from the limitations of physical matter without completely abandoning the corporeal form. But Jesus didn't just travel to the east. Archaeological evidence suggests he also traveled secretly to Britain, where he taught the Celtic Druids the mysteries of resurrection. Runestones found in Glastonbury contain symbols describing death and rebirth rituals that are identical to the techniques described in the Tibetan and Indian texts. How could completely separate spiritual traditions have developed identical methods in the same historical period? The answer lies in the secret teachings Jesus imparted during the 40 days following his resurrection. He not only proved that it was possible to transcend death, he taught how. And the first recipients of these teachings spread throughout the known world, establishing mystery schools that would preserve this knowledge through the centuries. The early church fathers discreetly mention these special teachings that Jesus allegedly gave only to his closest disciples. Clement of Alexandria speaks of greater mysteries that were transmitted orally and were never to be written down. Origen mentions secret doctrines that Jesus taught after the resurrection, but which were deliberately omitted from the Gospels because ordinary humanity was not prepared to receive them. Documents found in the Coptic library of Nag Hammadi reveal that Jesus spent much of the 40 days explaining to his disciples the true nature of reality. He taught that the physical world is but one of the multiple dimensions of existence, and that physical death is simply a transition between states of consciousness. Most importantly, he revealed that every human being has the capacity to make this transition consciously, without going through the traumatic experience of involuntary death. Mary Magdalene, according to these Gnostic texts, was the primary recipient of the most advanced teachings. Jesus taught her specific techniques of consciousness transformation that would allow access to higher states of existence while still alive. These techniques involved methods of breathing, visualization, and energy manipulation that would activate dormant centers in the human brain, centers that modern science is only beginning to uncover. But perhaps most shocking of all is the discovery that Jesus left specific instructions on when and how these teachings should be revealed to humanity. According to recently discovered Essene texts, Jesus prophesied that a time would come in history when the very fabric of reality would become more fluid, allowing more people to naturally access the states of consciousness he had demonstrated. This moment, according to his predictions, would coincide with technological advances that would allow humanity to scientifically understand the processes he had intuitively activated. The time has come to connect all the dots of this investigation that has changed my life forever. For 15 years, I thought I was studying ancient history, but what I discovered was much more than that. I discovered that Jesus' resurrection was not an isolated event in the past. It was the activation of a process that is still happening today, right under our noses. The empty tomb was not just a miracle, it was a portal between two dimensions of reality, And the proof of this is hidden in a place you would never imagine, in your own DNA. Recent scientific research has discovered that the human genetic code contains sequences that have no apparent biological function. Scientists call this junk DNA, representing over 90% of our genetic material. But what these scientists don't know is that these sequences are not junk. They are dormant codes waiting to be activated. When Jesus was resurrected, something fundamental changed in the quantum structure of human reality. The process he activated in his own body created a morphogenetic field that affects all human beings born after that moment. This is why over the past 2,000 years we have seen a gradual but steady increase in people with abilities that transcend normal physical limitations. Saints who levitated mystics, who bilocated healers who regenerated tissue with the touch of their hands. Jesus' body did not disappear from the tomb. It transformed into something that transcends our current physical understanding. It became a quantum model, an energetic template that remains accessible to any human being who knows how to tune into its frequency. The 40 days he spent on earth after the resurrection were not just to teach his disciples. They were to permanently anchor this new evolutionary possibility in the human consciousness. The resurrection was not a one-time event from the past. It was the activation of a cosmic protocol that had been planned since the beginning of time. Ancient civilizations knew that a moment would come in human evolution when it would be necessary to activate dormant capacities in our biological structure. Jesus was chosen not because he was divine in a sense separate from humanity, but because he developed the ability to consciously access potentials that lie latent within each of us. And most shocking of all, this process of transformation didn't end with Jesus. It continues, and you could be next. The genetic codes he activated 2,000 years ago are becoming increasingly active in the human population today. Children are being born with abilities that our grandparents would have considered miraculous. Adults are spontaneously developing abilities that transcend known physical limitations. For 2 millennia, humanity lived with only fragments of the truth. But now you know. You've discovered the secret that changed history, and that can change your own. The empty tomb wasn't the end of a story. It was the beginning of a new era, an era where the boundaries between the physical and the spiritual dissolve, an era where death itself becomes optional. If this video changed your perspective, if it opened your mind to possibilities you never imagined, then your journey is just beginning. Subscribe to the channel, because what you've discovered today is just the tip of the iceberg. In the next videos, I'll reveal the specific documents, the exact techniques, and the scientific protocols that can activate in you the same transformational processes that Jesus demonstrated 2,000 years ago. And if you want to know how to activate in your own life this same transformative power that resurrected Jesus, if you want to discover the 7 secret protocols the first apostles used to manifest miracles, then stay tuned. In the next video, I'll reveal something that will blow your mind: the secret manual of personal resurrection. Specific techniques, practical exercises, and scientific methods that can awaken abilities that have lain dormant for millennia. The truth can no longer be hidden. The transformation has begun, and you can be a part of it.